Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
And me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
are going to discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So, we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Good Goodbyes podcast with me, Simon.
And I'm Tina, and today we're talking about direct cremation.
Oh, here's a subject. So,
Yeah.
direct cremation, unattended cremation, pure cremation, trademark, whatever you want to call it. It's become a really big thing and a really big part of the funeral industry. It's something we thought we'd touch on really quickly and really early in the podcast because it's on the tip of people's tongues and it's on your TV all day, every day.
Yeah, somebody was saying to me the other day that they twisted their ankle and they were off sick and they ended up watching more daytime TV than they ever normally would. And so many adverts for national companies doing direct cremation,
Yeah.
like bombarding amount of adverts. So it's quite a big push for it at the moment. Is it quite common then, Si, and lots of people having them?
So yeah, I mean, Sun Life do a cost of dying report every year, and within that, they talk about the different costs and how that's rising, the different types of funeral, and how that's changing. And since 2019, direct cremation was 3% then. It's now over 20% now. So in 5 years, that swing has been absolutely massive.
Huge.
It's just become a real big thing. It's always been there. It's been there as long as I've been doing funerals for 15 years. It's always been an option, but a lot of people have chosen not to go with it for whatever reason that might be. But now, and I think a big part is post-pandemic. It's really in people's consciousness now.
Yeah. And financially, I think we talked in our first episode about what do people talk about when they're planning funerals, and I think cost is a big one. And for a certain generation, that what they think a funeral costs is a big thing for them, and that this has got a label of being less expensive. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a bit of a factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, average funeral in the UK, according to Sun Life, is £4,141, but the average direct cremation is 1498. It's 1,498 Great British pounds, which is a huge difference. It
Yeah.
really is. You can see why, if people are cost driven or are making the choice that actually the money's better spent on a different kind of celebration, you
Yeah.
can see why they would have a direct cremation. I absolutely get that.
Yeah. Or people the other kind of story sitting around direct cremations for me as a celebrant is people saying, well, I don't want there to be a fuss. So I
Yeah.
don't want there to be a fuss. So I'm just going to be quietly, dealt with
Yeah, no,
where,
that's right.
and there will be no service and there will be no fuss and therefore no one will have to spend any money. And whilst I understand the no fuss point of view, that's not, and I said in the first episode, it is about you, but it's not about you.
Yeah,
So, yes, that's great that you think no fuss and you don't want to burden your family with arrangements or things that they have to do, and that comes up sometimes. But equally, saying goodbye is massively important.
it really is.
We
Yeah,
come into this world with a huge sense of celebration normally. When a baby is born, there's lots of excitement and celebration, and we mark that entry moment. And marking the exit moment is massively important. And as a nurse, because I'm a nurse and a celebrant, there's research emerging that says all those COVID pandemic moments when there was no funeral, when people were online watching their loved one, in a service where there were maybe two other people, or not being able to attend a service at all, and has still left behind some mental health issues for people. They're still struggling with that lack of goodbye or that lack of closure, or
It's been
and
hugely impactful. And
yeah,
people
yeah.
haven't had the
So
opportunity to grieve, and
mm,
funeral's a big starting point of the grieving process. And a lot of people haven't had that, and a lot of people had grand plans of we'll do a memorial service later down the line, and
yeah,
then they are faced with the thought of, well, now I'm putting myself back through it again 2 years later.
mm,
Do I want to do that? Uh,
yeah,
so it's I fear with direct cremation that there will be people that haven't necessarily thought about the effects on them because that's what dad wanted or that's what mum
yeah,
wanted, not realizing that it doesn't give them the opportunity to say goodbye, which is ultimately what it's
yeah,
about. A good goodbye and an opportunity to send your loved one on their way,
yeah.
like respectfully and with love.
Yeah, and in community, there's always ceremony. You know, there's
Yes,
so much ceremony in our life, whether you celebrate Christmas, whether you mark the Easter Bunny, there are moments and birthdays, that's a classic, you know, we light a candle, we blow it out. You know, people do stuff at moments in their lives to mark transitions, let's call it that. And this is a biggie, you know, that needs marking by community. Now, you can do something really cheap in your back garden. You can send granddad up in a firework. You know, there's hundreds of ways to go about it. But the fact that you are gathering to remember a life, to mark that exit, and to think about what will life now be like without them in it for me,
yeah,
is big, big, big.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're the same as me, Tina. There are members of my family I see at weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
But that in itself, like still feeling part of a family coming together,
Mm,
uh,
mm.
it's as important. And it may be that I only see those family members at those moments, but that's a really good excuse to do it. It's a
Yeah.
really good opportunity to do that. Um, so, I mean, I would never speak ill of any company, of any supplier of direct cremation. Um, but what you have to think of is some of the big companies. I mean, as an independent, we do things slightly different, but some of the big companies, you will be saying goodbye to your loved one at the door
Yeah.
when they are removed from your property on a stretcher after they have passed away. That's your goodbye. Is that really what you want?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
moment, or
Yeah.
if they've died in hospital, like that last breath in a hospital bed, that's your goodbye.
Yeah. And in the creation of a ceremony, whatever shape that takes, you could see the family coming to terms. When I'm sat in a lounge with somebody for 2 hours talking about their dad, I can see them going through the loss bit and then going through the remembering bit, and all the memories and everything comes out, and all the stories and all the funny little foibles he had, and how he was a blooming nuisance when it came to the way he made his tea, and kind of just getting their whole conversation out and being allowed to do that in the creation of a ceremony. So there's the creation, then there's the actual being in a place with community doing that. It's a huge part of saying goodbye. Like you say, it saddens me greatly because as a nurse, I've seen families really struggle with the goodbye at the bedside with the last breath. But then beyond that is a little bit of time where they get to say goodbye differently, and they start not just remembering this moment when there might have been an illness, let's say, but everything that went before when they were hale and hearty and dancing at Christmas around the tree and all of that. So they remember the whole person. And I do worry about the way that some direct cremation is conducted. I
Yeah,
think it could cause problems ahead for
it could.
people's mental health.
And as I started this episode, I mentioned that this is something that has been around for a long time, and I implore people, if direct cremation is really what you absolutely want, that's fine. There are a lot of really good providers for that. Speak to your local independent funeral director. They offer it as well. It doesn't have to be the back of a van that's going off wherever. It can be your local independent funeral director that comes out, like me personally at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's going to be there to hold your hand, that's going to be the person you speak to
Yeah,
the next day.
yeah,
Because yeah, it's that goodbye at the door. It's not a good goodbye.
no, I
Yeah, that's
think
the name of our podcast,
I know,
as I
and
say
I
it.
and I would agree with you. And I think for those who and also, don't if you find that Uncle Fred has arranged a direct cremation and he's signed up for it and paid for it, and you didn't know anything about it, and then you find yourself sometime later with his ashes, then what you can do is still do something. You
Yeah.
know, you can still do something. I know quite a lot of people, I'm sure you're the same, Si, you've got ashes in the wardrobe or ashes somewhere in the house, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do with them now, and it's been too long and all of that. But actually, you could wait till the person's next birthday, not their death day, as I call it, but their birthday.
Yeah.
You could think, well, Tina would have been 70 this birthday, and so let's do a little something. And you could have a little bit of a send off around that. You could just get the ashes and think, right, we're going to have a small service now. And you can have it at home, in a pub, down the cricket club, on a boat.
Absolutely. And I think this is probably an episode that we're gonna do
Yeah,
in its entirety is cremated remains, is ashes, because
yeah,
you would be amazed at what you can do. Like Tina touched on fireworks. There are
yeah.
walking sticks that you can put the ashes in so that when you walk the coastal path, little bits of ashes scatter along the way. There are
Ah,
just an absolute myriad. We've done boat trips and ashes scatterings at sea, and the options. I mean, even the one we did together, Tina, actually, they had a buffet, they had a band on this boat. It was an incredible send off
yeah. Because
because
he loved the sea, didn't he? And he had a shanty. He was
absolutely.
he was really keen because I spoke to him before his death, and he was really keen to have like a sea shanty band, and
Yeah,
was specific about which one he wanted. And it
absolutely.
was it was really a great event and very heartfelt. And there was upset, but there was joy in his remembrance. And I think that only happens if you gather, whether you gather three or four of you, or you gather more of you. Um, and that's still possible even if you've had a direct cremation.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's that gathering, whether it's with ashes, whether it's with a coffin, or whether it's with just your family. I don't think that's the important bit, but I do think that the opportunity to remember together, to say goodbye, is a really, really good thing. And even very, very small families, when there's one or two people, I think being together and going through that together is something that's quite important.
Yeah,
Um, it's not something you should have to do on your own if you can avoid it.
I think that's a great place to stop, actually, because it's just such a great thing to think about. You don't have to do these things on your own. So thank you for listening to this episode about direct cremations. I hope it was informative, and we'll see you again next time.
You've been listening to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment, and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.